Alex had been traveling through the outer rim of the galaxy for weeks, moving from one trading hub to another, exploring the various planets and stations. He was a human of simple habits, not wealthy but resourceful, curious about the stars and the life forms he might meet. He had seen many strange things on his travels, aliens of every shape and size, different customs, and a few shady deals, but nothing had prepared him for what he found on the small, crowded station called Verones. He had docked his small ship in the bustling trading hub, looking for rare supplies and some chance to trade old equipment for credits. The corridors were narrow, filled with merchants calling out their goods and travelers moving hurriedly from one end of the hub to the other. The air smelled of oil, metal, and strange spices from distant worlds. Neon signs flickered, casting an uneven light over the crowds, and Alex felt the familiar thrill of adventure. As he wandered past a row of stalls, he noticed a shadowed corner that seemed quieter than the rest of the hub. The flickering light revealed a stack of cages, small but sturdy, made of thick metal bars. At first he thought they might contain animals, but then he noticed the eyes staring back at him. Golden, intelligent eyes, wide with fear, blinking and shifting nervously. The creatures inside were small, humanoid in shape, with soft fur, pointed ears and tails flicking nervously. They moved with grace even behind the bars, their movements quick and fluid, as if any moment they might spring into action. Alex froze, staring at them in shock. He had heard stories of alien species being mistreated or traded as property, but seeing it firsthand was something entirely different. These weren't animals. They were clearly sentient beings, aware of their surroundings, reacting to his presence with fear and hope at the same time. One small female at the front of the cage leaned closer, her whiskers twitching, and whispered a sound that almost sounded like a word. Her golden eyes seemed to say everything without needing language: "Help us." The traders nearby noticed Alex staring. They were humanoid aliens of various types, their clothing bright and ostentatious, their posture relaxed and smug. They were busy counting credits and arguing with buyers, seemingly unconcerned about the creatures in the cages. One of them noticed Alex's attention and waved a hand lazily. "They're livestock," the trader said, voice flat. "Don't bother. They're good for food, pets, or labor. Buy or leave." Alex felt anger rise in his chest. He gritted his teeth and stepped closer to the cages. "You can't treat them like this," he said firmly. "They're intelligent beings, not property to sell. You can't ignore that." The trader laughed, a harsh, metallic sound that echoed in the corridor. "You're human," he said, shaking his head. "You think your species has any say here? This is commerce. They're worth credits, nothing more. You can feel sorry if you want, but it won't change anything." Alex looked into the eyes of the creatures again. He could see the fear, the confusion, and the desperation. He could hear the small hiss of anger from some, the quiet whimpers from others. He realized that they had been trapped here for longer than he could guess, shipped from distant worlds, and likely forced into this cage against their will. His fists clenched. He could not ignore them. He could not turn away. He took a slow step back and surveyed the scene. The cages were stacked in layers, connected by metal walkways that allowed traders to move easily between them. Some buyers had already approached, examining the catfolk with calculating eyes. Alex noticed that one of the cages held a small male with black fur and bright green eyes. He seemed calm, but his eyes were sharp and aware, darting to every movement in the room. Another, a young female with gray stripes, hissed softly at a potential buyer who reached a hand toward the bars. The creatures were aware, intelligent, and clearly distressed. Alex swallowed hard. He knew that simply yelling or complaining would not work. The traders had their rules and their systems, and he was just one human in a crowded hub. But he also knew that he could not leave these beings here. Something had to be done. He felt a surge of determination. If he could find the credits, if he could find a way, he would save them. Every instinct told him that helping them was the right thing to do, and he would not ignore it. He began to move through the crowd, observing quietly, calculating. He noticed the way the traders handled the cages, the small loopholes and gaps in security. He saw which cages were closest to the exit and which creatures seemed strongest and most alert. He considered the risks, getting caught, losing his money, or even worse, being accused of interfering with trade, but none of it mattered. He had made his choice in that moment. Alex took out a small notebook from his jacket and scribbled quick calculations. He added up his current credits, considered what he could trade or sell, and imagined the cost of buying freedom for all the catfolk. The number was high, far beyond what he had at hand, but that did not stop him. He had traveled the stars, faced dangers before, and survived. This was simply another challenge, one that demanded not skill in combat or piloting, but courage, persistence, and clever thinking. He returned his gaze to the creatures in the cages. The small female with white fur pressed her face against the bars, ears twitching nervously. She looked at him as if understanding that he was the only one who might help. Alex felt a lump rise in his throat. He knelt slightly to be closer to her level. "I will find a way," he whispered. "I promise you I won't leave you here." The catfolk blinked slowly, some moving toward him, some curling back into the corner of their cages. The moment was fragile, filled with fear, hope, and uncertainty. But Alex knew he had to act. The traders would not give them up easily, and the station was crawling with guards and mercenaries who would enforce the rules. Every step would be risky, every action could be dangerous, but he had no choice. He left the cages briefly to survey the surrounding corridors, noting the exits, the security stations, and the patrol schedules. He moved carefully, blending with the crowd, but his mind never left the catfolk. He imagined their lives if he could save them, running free, exploring new worlds, and living without fear of cages or sale. The thought strengthened his resolve. As evening approached, the hub grew darker and quieter. Traders were finishing their deals, buyers haggled over smaller goods, and the creatures in the cages grew restless. Alex returned to the cages, kneeling again beside the small female. "We'll figure this out," he said softly. "I will get the money and I will get you free. Trust me." The catfolk tilted their heads, their eyes shining with cautious hope. Alex could feel their trust, delicate and fragile but real. He knew that time was short. The longer they stayed in the cages, the more likely they were to be sold, moved, or harmed. He made a silent vow, he would not fail them. Not now, not ever. Alex stared at the cages again, his jaw set with determination. The catfolk looked at him with wide, golden eyes, some trembling, some trying to appear braver than they felt. They were so small and delicate, yet their eyes reflected a kind of intelligence and curiosity that humans rarely expected from creatures so different from themselves. Alex felt the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. He knew that if he walked away now, they would remain prisoners, traded like commodities or worse. He had to act. He reached into his bag and pulled out his credit chip, counting carefully. Each number he typed into the trading interface made his chest tighten. He had spent years collecting these credits, traveling from station to station, taking small jobs, risking dangerous deliveries, all to build enough wealth to survive in the Outer Rim. Now all of it was about to be spent in one attempt to save beings he barely knew. But he did not hesitate. Saving the catfolk was worth more than any credits, any upgrade, any material possession he had ever acquired. The smugglers noticed his calculations and leaned in, their eyes narrowing. They were tall, sharp-featured aliens with long, clawed fingers, and their expressions were filled with mockery. "You think you can buy them?" one asked, voice dripping with disbelief. "No human has ever paid enough to free these creatures. They are property, and property has a price beyond your reach." Alex did not flinch. He met their gaze steadily, his own voice firm. "Then I will pay it," he said simply. "Whatever it costs, I will pay." The smugglers laughed again, louder this time, their voices echoing through the crowded corridor. Other traders and buyers glanced over, curious at the audacity of a single human challenging the system. "You don't understand," one sneered. "The price is beyond what your kind could ever gather. Even if you sold everything, it wouldn't be enough. You are wasting your time." Alex's hands clenched into fists. "I understand perfectly," he replied. "And I am willing to risk everything to do what is right." He started selling his own possessions. His old gear, his spare ship parts, and even some of his personal supplies that he had planned to use on future journeys, all were traded for credits. Each transaction brought him closer to the total sum the smugglers demanded, and each exchange was accompanied by their laughter, disbelief, or ridicule. The catfolk watched him closely. Some tilted their heads in curiosity, unsure of what was happening. Others backed into corners of the cages, their tails twitching nervously. Alex tried to meet their eyes, offering a small smile despite the tension and exhaustion he felt. "We're going to get you out of here," he whispered softly. "Just a little longer and you'll be free." Hours passed as Alex continued to work. The smugglers made him jump through complicated paperwork, checklists, and authentication processes. Each delay was meant to frustrate him, to tire him, to make him give up. But Alex refused. He moved methodically, completing every form, signing every line, and negotiating for the catfolk's freedom. His mind raced constantly, calculating every possibility, every loophole, every way they might try to cheat him. But he stayed focused, driven by the silent eyes of those trapped creatures. At one point, a young trader approached, a thin alien with greenish skin and nervous eyes. "Why do you bother?" he asked quietly. "No human has ever done this. Most give up before they even start. The price is impossible." Alex paused for a moment thinking about the question. Then he replied firmly, "Because it is right. That is reason enough. If I have to give everything I own to save them, I will. I cannot stand by and do nothing." The young trader looked at him for a long moment, then nodded subtly and slipped away, perhaps thinking that maybe humans were stronger in ways he had never considered. Meanwhile, the catfolk remained alert. Some whispered to each other in soft tones, their voices melodic but anxious. Alex could not understand their language yet, but he sensed their fear and hope. He knew that any mistake, any delay could result in their permanent loss. He reminded himself to stay calm, to stay focused, to complete this task no matter what obstacles lay ahead. The smugglers, realizing he was serious, began to increase the pressure. They brought in more cages, more traders, and even threatened to cancel the deal altogether. "If you cannot pay, the price will rise," one warned. "Do you understand? One more delay, and these creatures will be sold to someone else, far away." Alex felt the weight of their words but did not waver. He continued trading everything he had, pushing himself to his limits. The credits flowed steadily into the smugglers' accounts, the total slowly rising toward the enormous sum demanded. Alex was exhausted, sweating from the mental and physical strain, but he refused to stop. Each completed transaction was another step toward freedom for the catfolk, and he reminded himself that no amount of money could compare to the lives he was saving. By evening, he had reached the final stage. His last remaining credits were on the table, ready to transfer. The smugglers stared, now less mocking and more cautious, realizing that this human truly intended to pay it all. One of them leaned forward, examining Alex's tired but determined face. "You are serious," he said. "I did not think a human could have this much persistence." Alex met his gaze steadily. "I'm serious. Pay me the price for them and they go free. Refuse, and you will regret underestimating me." His voice was quiet but filled with authority. The hub was busy but the tension in the air was palpable. Traders paused to watch, buyers whispered among themselves, and the catfolk shifted in their cages, sensing that something important was about to happen. The transfer completed. Credits left Alex's account, leaving him nearly destitute, but the smugglers could not deny the payment. With a few taps on their devices, the cages unlocked. The catfolk hesitated at first, unsure if this was real, unsure if freedom was truly possible. Then, slowly, one by one, they stepped out, their tails swishing, ears flicking, and eyes wide with cautious hope. Alex knelt to greet them, holding out his hands. "It's real," he said softly. "You're free now. You can go anywhere, do anything, and no one can harm you here." The catfolk approached him carefully, some brushing against him, others sniffing curiously. The small white female who had first looked at him stepped forward, touching his hand with her delicate paw, her golden eyes shining. The smugglers muttered in frustration, realizing that they had lost control over their livestock. Alex, exhausted but resolute, helped the catfolk gather their belongings and guide them toward a hidden exit he had scouted earlier. The catfolk followed him cautiously but willingly, understanding that this human had risked everything to save them. Along the way, Alex encountered guards and other traders who tried to block them. He moved calmly but firmly, explaining the situation and showing the payment confirmation. Some guards frowned, unwilling to question the system, but seeing Alex's determination and the official transfer of credits, they stepped aside. The catfolk moved quietly behind him, their movements graceful but wary, aware that danger could still be present. As they reached the station's airlock, Alex took a deep breath, feeling the weight of exhaustion but also the lightness of victory. He had spent every credit, every possession, every bit of energy he had to free these beings. Yet in that moment, as the doors opened to the fresh air of space docking lanes, he felt that every sacrifice had been worth it. The catfolk glanced around nervously, then slowly began to relax, stretching their limbs, examining the new environment, and whispering to each other in soft, melodic tones. Alex watched them with quiet satisfaction. He knew they would survive, thrive, and perhaps one day repay his courage with trust, loyalty, or companionship. But he did not expect anything. His only goal had been to do what was right. As the first stars appeared in the artificial night sky of the station, Alex realized that he had learned something about humanity in that moment. Even in a crowded alien hub filled with greed and indifference, humans were capable of empathy, bravery, and persistence that could defy expectation. He had stood against cruelty, risked everything, and acted with courage that even the smugglers could not ignore. He turned to the catfolk who were beginning to move more confidently now, their golden eyes reflecting curiosity and cautious joy. "Follow me," he said gently. "There's a safe place waiting for you." And as they followed him through the winding corridors, Alex knew that the hardest part of the journey had just begun. Buying their freedom was only the first step. Now he had to ensure they escaped the station safely, avoiding anyone who might try to reclaim them. He tightened his grip on his pack, checked the map he had memorized, and prepared to lead them into a new chapter of life. Alex did not falter. He did not hesitate. He had spent everything to save them and he would not let them down now. Every step he took, every decision he made, carried the weight of responsibility and the quiet satisfaction of doing the right thing. The catfolk trusted him, and he would honor that trust no matter what dangers awaited. The night in the trading hub was quiet now, except for the soft footfalls of Alex and the catfolk moving through hidden passageways. Every shadow could hide a threat, every corner might hold a mercenary or a guard. But Alex's mind was sharp, his resolve stronger than ever. He knew that courage was not measured in strength alone, but in the willingness to act when action was needed most. And as they disappeared into the maze of corridors, leaving the smugglers and the crowded trading hub behind, Alex felt a quiet pride. Not in the credits spent, not in the battles fought, but in the knowledge that he had done what no one else would. He had risked everything for beings who could not defend themselves, and in doing so, he had shown the strength of humanity in its purest form. Alex moved carefully through the dimly lit corridors of the trading hub, his senses alert to every sound, every movement. The small group of catfolk followed behind him, their golden eyes wide with caution. Some of them had tails wrapped tightly around their bodies, ears flicking nervously at every echo. Their fur bristled slightly as they adjusted to the unfamiliar surroundings. Though they had been freed from the cages, they were not yet truly safe. The corridors were filled with traders, station guards, and mercenaries who might still intercept them if they were not careful. Alex paused at a junction, crouching behind a stack of crates to observe the hallway ahead. A patrol of 2 guards walked slowly, speaking quietly to each other. Their boots clattered on the metal floor, and the faint hum of the station's power systems filled the air. Alex counted their steps, timing the interval between their turns. He whispered to the catfolk, "Wait here. When I say go, follow closely and stay silent." The creatures nodded, some tilting their heads in curiosity, others pressing themselves against the walls to remain unseen. He waited until the patrol passed, then motioned for the catfolk to move. The group padded quietly behind him, their small feet making almost no sound on the metal floor. Alex led them down a narrow passage he had discovered earlier, a service corridor used for maintenance and rarely traveled by others. The air was cooler here, tinged with the faint smell of machinery oil. It was dark, but Alex had memorized the path, knowing every turn, every junction. As they moved, some of the catfolk whispered softly to each other. Alex could not understand their words fully, but the tones were filled with relief and gratitude. One small female brushed her paw against his arm lightly, and he smiled faintly. "We're almost out," he whispered, encouraging them. "Stay close. Keep quiet. You're safe with me." Their trust was fragile but real, and Alex felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Every step mattered. One mistake could lead to recapture, and after all the effort to buy their freedom, failure was not an option. The corridors were winding and narrow, forcing Alex to move slowly. Some passages were blocked with crates and debris, remnants of old station repairs. He pushed aside obstacles carefully, making sure the catfolk could pass without noise. Occasionally he stopped to check their progress, counting heads to make sure no one lagged behind or panicked. Their eyes followed him constantly, reading his movements, their trust growing with every careful step. As they reached a junction, Alex froze. Ahead, a group of traders had gathered, laughing and gesturing toward the main hub. They had noticed the missing cages and were scanning the corridors, looking for the missing catfolk. Alex pressed himself against the wall and counted the seconds as they passed. He whispered, "Stay low. Don't move until I say go." The catfolk crouched behind him, their tails wrapped tightly, ears twitching with tension. Once the traders had passed, Alex led the group down another narrow passage, this one lined with maintenance conduits. Sparks occasionally flickered from loose wiring, but he navigated carefully, avoiding danger. The catfolk followed silently, their confidence slowly growing. They whispered again, and Alex could sense their small voices filled with cautious optimism. He smiled faintly to himself. Despite their fear, they were learning to trust him, and he would not betray that trust. The station corridors seemed endless, a maze of metal and shadows. Alex had memorized shortcuts and maintenance tunnels that few knew existed. Each turn brought new challenges: a locked door, a sudden patrol, or a gap in the floor grating. He helped the catfolk over each obstacle, lifting some small ones gently when needed. Their movements were graceful, but their small size made them vulnerable, and Alex's vigilance never wavered. As they moved deeper into the station, Alex felt exhaustion creeping into his muscles. His shoulders ached from carrying supplies, his legs were stiff from crouching and running, and his mind was strained from constant calculation. But he ignored it. The catfolk needed him fully alert, fully focused, and he would not falter. The thought of them being recaptured, thrown back into cages, drove him onward with a determination stronger than any fatigue. At one point, they reached a small ventilation shaft leading to a service ladder. Alex tested the ladder first, then helped the smallest catfolk climb up. The white-furred female went last, hesitating briefly before Alex's hand encouraged her. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe now. Just a little more and we'll be out." One by one they climbed into the shaft, following his lead, their small paws gripping the metal rungs with agility and care. Inside the shaft, the catfolk moved cautiously, but the confined space allowed Alex to keep them close and protected. He led them through twists and turns, crawling carefully, listening to the distant sounds of the station. Every hum of machinery, every footstep, every muffled conversation was a signal to pause, wait, or move quickly. The tension was high, but Alex felt a quiet sense of purpose. He had risked everything to buy their freedom, and now he would ensure that freedom was realized. Hours seemed to pass as they navigated the maze of tunnels. The catfolk whispered softly, their voices a melody of relief and gratitude. Alex could not respond in their language, but he nodded and smiled, offering reassurance with gestures. Occasionally, one of them brushed against him, a small sign of trust and understanding. Alex felt a warmth in his chest. Despite the fear, despite the exhaustion, this connection made the struggle worthwhile. As they neared an access hatch that led to the station's outer docking bays, Alex paused again. The hatch was secured with a keypad and a locking mechanism, but he had already memorized the override code from previous observations. Carefully he entered the code, listening for any sounds of approaching guards. When the hatch clicked open, a faint hiss of air pressure escaped, and he motioned for the catfolk to enter. One by one they climbed through the hatch, emerging into the docking bay. The station lights were dim and the open space of the bay stretched before them. Alex let out a quiet breath of relief. They were almost free. The catfolk looked around nervously, ears twitching and tails flicking. Alex stayed close, guiding them toward a section of the bay where small cargo pods could be hidden. His movements were calm but deliberate, ensuring that they remained unseen by any remaining guards or traders. Alex piloted the small cargo pod carefully through the station's outer docking bay and into open space. The stars stretched endlessly around him, distant suns casting pale light on the hulls of nearby ships. He kept the pod low and close to debris fields and asteroid fragments, using the natural cover to avoid patrol scanners. The catfolk were crouched behind him, their golden eyes wide, ears alert and tails flicking nervously. They had never been in space before, and Alex could feel their tension, their curiosity, and their quiet trust in him. The hum of the pod was steady, but Alex's mind was on high alert. He had anticipated the possibility of pursuit, and now he saw it. A squadron of mercenary ships emerged from the station's shadows, sleek and armed, engines glowing red as they cut through the void. Alex recognized the hull markings. They were known hunters who worked with smugglers to retrieve escaped property from rogue buyers. His stomach tightened, but he did not panic. He had been in dangerous situations before, and his skills in piloting, combined with the catfolk's assistance, could get them through. "Hold on," he whispered. The catfolk pressed close, their small bodies tense. He flicked switches, adjusting the pod's thrusters, moving toward a dense asteroid field that twisted and turned between his current location and the outer rim. The mercenaries followed, firing warning lasers that arced across the void, striking harmlessly against loose rocks. Alex's hands were steady, his eyes scanning constantly for threats and pathways. The catfolk began to act. One small male with black fur and bright green eyes jumped lightly onto the control panel, pointing to a cluster of asteroids that Alex had not noticed. His instincts were sharp, honed perhaps from surviving in tight spaces, and Alex followed the guidance. Another, a female with gray stripes, crouched behind him, her ears twitching as she alerted him to movement in the shadows. Their reflexes were incredible, far faster than a human could react, and Alex began to rely on their help instinctively. The pod weaved between the asteroids, narrowly avoiding collisions with floating rocks and debris. The mercenary ships followed, firing intermittently, but their speed was limited by the obstacles. Alex felt adrenaline surge through him, his focus sharpened. He leaned on the catfolk's instincts, listening to their soft warnings, following their subtle movements. Together they moved as a unit, human and alien, trust guiding every decision, every adjustment of speed, every maneuver through the dangerous field. Hours seemed to pass as they navigated the asteroid belt. Alex's muscles ached from constant tension, his fingers gripping the controls tightly. The catfolk whispered occasionally, small melodic tones of reassurance and coordination, guiding him past the most dangerous zones. Their tails flicked for balance, their ears twitched constantly, and Alex marveled at their agility. He realized that they were more than passengers. They were active partners, helping him make split-second decisions that kept all of them alive. At one point, a massive asteroid shifted unexpectedly, and a mercenary ship surged forward, attempting to ram them. Alex twisted the pod sharply, narrowly avoiding the collision. A small female with white fur leapt to a control lever and pushed a button instinctively, activating a minor diversion system that sent false energy readings to the mercenary sensors. The pursuing ships hesitated, buying precious seconds. Alex's heart pounded as he guided them further into the field, the catfolk working seamlessly with him. Despite the danger, there were moments of quiet observation. The catfolk looked at the stars with fascination, golden eyes reflecting the distant suns. Alex glanced back at them and smiled faintly. They were free now, at least partially, and yet the threat still loomed. He reminded himself that freedom was not complete until they were safely beyond the reach of the mercenaries. But seeing their curiosity and trust filled him with renewed energy. He could not fail them now. The mercenaries began to regroup, attempting to flank the pod from both sides. Alex's training and quick thinking allowed him to twist and dive through the asteroid tunnels, narrowly evading detection. One black-furred male leapt from the floor to the side console, tapping rapidly at a control screen, signaling danger ahead. Another female catfolk crouched low, signaling which path to avoid. Their combined senses and instincts were unmatched, and Alex realized that their help was critical. Without them he would have been caught long ago. They passed through a particularly dense section of the asteroid belt, where massive rocks floated precariously, some tumbling slowly, others spinning. Alex had to calculate each movement precisely, adjusting thrust and trajectory, relying on the catfolk's warnings. A small collision could have sent them careening into space, but together they navigated flawlessly. The mercenaries fired sporadically, but the rocks provided cover, and Alex felt a quiet satisfaction in their teamwork. Hours stretched on as they moved deeper into the belt. Alex's body was tired, his vision strained from constant scanning, yet he felt invigorated by their cooperation. The catfolk whispered, flicked tails and gestured, communicating in ways Alex could now partially understand. Their intelligence and instinct complemented his skill, and he felt a connection growing, a silent partnership born of trust, danger, and mutual reliance. As they approached the edge of the asteroid belt, the mercenary ships grew frustrated. Their formations were disrupted, their attempts to flank were failing. Alex could see their engines flaring as they attempted sharp turns, but the pod, guided by human skill and alien instincts, moved faster and more predictably through the chaos. One female catfolk leapt onto the top console, pointing toward a narrow gap that Alex had not noticed before. "There," he muttered, following her lead. The pod surged forward, slipping through the opening just as a massive asteroid tumbled into the path of the pursuing ships. The mercenaries cursed, their attacks becoming more reckless as frustration mounted. Alex remained calm, relying on the catfolk's instincts and his own experience. They moved together like a single organism, a human and alien team navigating the void with precision and trust. Their small bodies pressed close to him, yet their presence was confident, aware, and alert. Alex realized that this trust was not given lightly. The catfolk had chosen to follow him completely, and he would honor that choice by keeping them alive. After a tense series of maneuvers, the pod reached a quieter region of space, far from the immediate dangers of the station and the asteroid belt. The stars stretched vast and empty around them, and for the first time the catfolk relaxed slightly, tails curling more loosely, ears easing back. Alex allowed himself a small smile, though his body remained tense, ready for any sudden danger. They were not completely safe yet, but the immediate threat had passed. He checked the navigation system, confirming that they were on course for a safe zone he had identified earlier. The catfolk moved among the small compartments of the pod, examining equipment curiously, asking questions in their melodic tones. Alex could not understand fully, but he nodded and smiled, reassuring them with gestures and a calm voice. Their trust was now complete, and he felt a quiet pride in having earned it. As the pod glided further from the asteroid belt, the mercenaries finally gave up the chase, their ships retreating toward the station. Alex allowed a small sigh of relief, knowing that he had outmaneuvered them, with the help of his unusual team. The catfolk chirped softly, a sound of celebration or relief, and Alex laughed quietly, sharing in their moment. They had survived together, and the bond formed in danger was strong and lasting. Finally, they reached the outer rim of the asteroid field, where the space was calmer and navigation simpler. Alex guided the pod carefully toward the coordinates of the hidden colony he had planned as their refuge. The catfolk pressed close, their golden eyes bright with curiosity and cautious joy. Alex felt the weight of exhaustion, but it was tempered by a deep satisfaction. He had risked everything to save them, and now they were moving safely toward freedom. As they approached the coordinates, Alex allowed the pod to slow, scanning for any remaining threats. None appeared. He felt a quiet sense of triumph, tempered by the knowledge that they were not yet fully safe but very close. The catfolk began to move more freely inside the pod, exploring cautiously, their small voices filled with curiosity and relief. Alex watched them with pride, marveling at their courage and intelligence. In that vast, quiet region of space, with danger finally behind them, Alex realized something important. Courage was not just about fighting or surviving, it was about responsibility, trust, and the willingness to act for the sake of others. The catfolk had trusted him completely, and he had guided them through impossible danger. That trust, he knew, was the greatest reward of all. With the mercenaries gone, the asteroid belt behind them, and the colony approaching, Alex felt a deep satisfaction. They had worked together, human and alien, using intelligence, skill, and courage to overcome threats. The catfolk had helped him as much as he had helped them, and the partnership had formed a bond stronger than fear. As the pod glided toward their safe haven, Alex spoke softly to the catfolk. "We're almost there. Just a little more and you'll be free completely." They pressed closer, ears flicking, tails curling, and golden eyes shining with cautious hope. Alex smiled faintly. They had endured together, survived together, and would soon thrive together. And in the quiet hum of the pod, with space stretching endlessly around them, Alex felt a quiet sense of pride. The catfolk had trusted him, he had protected them, and together they had evaded danger. The human spirit, courageous, empathetic, and determined, had prevailed, showing that even against overwhelming odds, action, trust, and bravery could change the fate of others. Alex guided the small pod carefully through the last stretch of empty space, heading toward a hidden colony he had discovered months before. It was a place far from the busy trade hubs and dangerous mercenaries, a quiet settlement tucked inside a hollow asteroid, shielded from sensors and scanners. The catfolk pressed close to him, their golden eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity, caution, and excitement. They had never seen a place like this, and Alex could feel their tension slowly giving way to hope. As the pod approached the colony entrance, he slowed it down, checking the external sensors for any signs of detection. The hollow asteroid's mouth loomed ahead, dark and silent. Alex had chosen this location carefully. It was remote, difficult to detect, and capable of housing the catfolk safely. The structure was reinforced with energy shielding, and a small docking bay opened to receive vessels quietly. He guided the pod toward the entrance, taking extra care to avoid tripping the automated defenses. The catfolk whispered among themselves softly. Alex could not understand their words, but the tone was full of relief and anticipation. They pressed closer as the pod glided through the opening, the interior of the colony dimly lit with warm, golden lights. Alex opened the pod's hatch and gestured for them to step out. The small group hesitated briefly, scanning the surroundings, but Alex smiled gently and nodded. "It's safe here. You can be free." One by one, the catfolk stepped out, their paws touching solid ground with careful curiosity. The white-furred female, who had been closest to Alex since the station, stepped forward first. She pressed a paw gently against his hand, golden eyes looking directly into his. "Thank you," she whispered in a soft, melodic voice. Alex simply nodded, saying nothing, allowing the moment to speak for itself. He knew their gratitude was genuine, unspoken yet clear in their posture, gestures, and expressions. The small group began to explore the colony, stretching their limbs, sniffing the air, and examining every corner. Their tails flicked in excitement, and their ears turned in every direction, alert to the new environment. Alex watched them quietly, a faint smile on his lips. He had spent everything, risked his life, and endured countless hours of tension and exhaustion to bring them here. But seeing them free, seeing their trust and cautious happiness, made it all worthwhile. The colony was simple but functional. Small living spaces were carved into the asteroid walls, each lined with basic furnishings and supplies. Energy shields provided protection from space debris, and a central hub offered communication with the few trusted allies Alex had left in the outer rim. He had prepared this place for emergencies like this, but now it served a higher purpose, providing safety and freedom for the alien catfolk. Alex showed them where to rest, eat, and find clean water. He guided them to a small room with soft mats and low tables, perfect for their small frames. The catfolk moved carefully, still wary but visibly relaxing with each step. The white-furred female brushed against his leg, looking up at him with golden eyes full of trust. Alex knelt and whispered, "You are safe now. Live freely. Explore. Be yourselves." They seemed to understand. Slowly they began to interact with their new environment, testing the space, jumping lightly from surfaces and moving with grace and confidence. Alex observed silently, proud of how quickly they adapted. The trust they placed in him had been justified, and now it was his responsibility to ensure that this safety continued. Outside the main area, small gardens and hydroponic stations provided food. Alex had stocked the colony with supplies from previous trips, anticipating potential emergencies. The catfolk explored cautiously, discovering the gardens, their movements fluid and precise. Alex noted how intelligent and adaptable they were, marveling at their agility and curiosity. Each step they took reinforced the success of the mission and the importance of his choices. As the hours passed, Alex prepared to leave. He had guided them here, ensured their safety, and helped them adjust to the colony's environment. Now it was time for him to return to his own travels. He stood quietly watching them explore, tails flicking, ears turning, golden eyes full of life. They had been through fear and danger, but now they had freedom. One of the males, sleek and black-furred, stepped forward and bowed slightly. The gesture was respectful, formal, and sincere. The other catfolk followed, bowing in their own way, acknowledging the courage and sacrifice of the human who had saved them. Alex felt a lump in his throat. He had not acted for praise or recognition, but seeing their gratitude made the journey worth every risk and every hardship. The white-furred female stepped forward one last time. She touched his arm lightly, her golden eyes meeting his. Alex nodded silently, understanding the depth of the trust and appreciation conveyed without words. He whispered softly, "Be safe. Be free. Live well." She blinked slowly, then turned to follow the others, moving with confidence and grace into their new home. Alex walked to the docking bay, his small pack on his shoulder, and glanced back one last time. The catfolk were exploring, interacting with each other, and beginning to settle into their new life. The colony was quiet, safe, and ready to serve as their home. Alex felt a deep satisfaction, knowing he had fulfilled his promise. He had spent everything, risked everything, and endured everything to ensure their freedom, and it had been worth it. As he boarded his small craft, he reflected on the journey. From the crowded corridors of the station to the hidden passages, the pursuit through space and the guidance through the asteroid belt, every decision had been critical. He had relied on courage, instinct, and determination. He had relied on the trust of beings so different from himself. And in return, they had trusted him completely, helping him navigate dangers he could not have managed alone. Alex started the engines and lifted off slowly, leaving the hidden colony behind. He did not look back for long. He did not need recognition or thanks beyond what had been given. The catfolk were safe, free, and exploring a life they had never imagined. That was enough. He felt a quiet pride, a deep satisfaction in having acted when it mattered most. As the stars stretched before him, he thought about the lessons of the journey. Courage was not always loud or flashy. Bravery was often quiet, persistent, and guided by moral conviction. Empathy could drive one to impossible feats, even in the face of overwhelming odds. And trust, once earned, could create bonds stronger than fear, danger, or distance. He had seen it in the golden eyes of the catfolk, in the small gestures of gratitude, and in the silent acknowledgement of their freedom. The station and mercenaries were far behind now. Alex's path would take him to new systems, new challenges, and new adventures. But the story of this mission, the rescue of the alien catfolk, would remain a quiet legend in the galaxy. Perhaps others would hear of the human who risked everything for the freedom of others, a reminder of what humans could achieve when guided by courage and empathy. As he navigated through the stars, Alex felt the weight of exhaustion in his body, but a lightness in his heart. He had spent everything, risked his life and endured every challenge, and in return he had changed lives. The catfolk were safe, and he had proven in a small but meaningful way that humanity could rise to meet challenges, show compassion, and act with honor even when no one was watching. Alex glanced back one last time at the stars behind him, the distant glow of the hidden colony fading from view. He knew that the catfolk would live safely, explore freely, and perhaps one day, carry the story of a human who had risked all to save them. That story, unspoken but powerful, would be remembered in their eyes, in their actions, and in the life they were about to lead. And with that thought, Alex piloted his ship forward, into the endless expanse of space, ready for whatever adventures awaited, carrying the quiet satisfaction of a mission accomplished, a promise fulfilled, and a tale of courage left behind in the stars.